What if I told you that a tiny silver coin in your old pocket change could be worth more than a brand new luxury car? Yes, we're talking about dimes. Ordinary little dimes. But not just any dimes. We're digging into the rarest, most valuable, and shockingly expensive one-dime coins that could turn up in your drawer, in a jar, or tucked away in Grandpa's old coin box. These coins don't just sell for a few $100. We're talking $100,000, $300,000, even over $1 million for just 10 cents of metal. In this video, I'm counting down 10 of the most jaw-dropping one-dime coins ever discovered, with each one getting rarer, more mysterious, and more valuable. And trust me, the coin at number 1 will leave your jaw on the floor. So grab your coffee, check that change jar, and hit subscribe, because one of these coins just might be sitting in your house right now. First up, a humble-looking 2014 Roosevelt dime, circulated, worn edges, nothing flashy, right? But wait, don't look away just yet, because this ordinary-looking coin has a hidden secret that could make your heart skip a beat. You see, back in 2014, the Denver Mint struck millions of these dimes, most of them worth exactly 10 cents. But among those millions, a tiny handful, less than a dozen known, came out with a jaw-dropping error so rare, so strange, it shocked collectors. It's called a misaligned die clash with full reverse rotation. Sounds complicated? Here's what it means in plain English. The coin was struck off-center, but not just a little. The dies, the metal pieces that stamp the design, were badly misaligned, and one was rotated nearly 180 degrees. That means the front and back of the coin aren't just off, they're twisted against each other. Imagine flipping a dime, and instead of seeing Roosevelt perfectly upright on one side and the torch upright on the other, the reverse is completely upside down. That kind of flaw? It's like finding a 4-leaf clover inside a locked vault. Now, here's the kicker. A coin like this, in circulated condition, scuffed, handled, pocket-worn, recently sold for over $325,000 at auction. That's a life-changing amount of money for a single dime. Why so much? Because collectors go crazy for rare mint errors. And when a common coin becomes uncommonly rare, it's like winning the lottery, only the ticket is metal and it fits in your palm. And what's even more thrilling? This coin doesn't look like a golden treasure. It looks like something you might accidentally toss in a parking meter. Let that sink in. A 2014 Denver dime worth over $250,000 just because of a freak accident at the mint. Now imagine this. You're sorting coins and one feels a little off. The rotation's weird. The edge looks not quite right. That tiny detail? It could be your jackpot. So before you cash in your change, flip those dimes, twist them, examine the way the images line up, because the next six-figure discovery could be sitting in your hand right now. And that was just the beginning. Next up, we've got a dime so rare it disappeared for over 40 years before exploding onto the scene in a sealed envelope. And when it sold, it shattered records. But real quick, if this surprised you even a little, make sure to subscribe, because the values are only going up from here. Next up, a 2002 Roosevelt dime, circulated, scratches, dull shine, and clearly passed through many hands. But looks can be deceiving. Because this coin, yes, this worn little dime minted in Denver, is hiding a secret so rare, so bizarre, it caused a bidding war among collectors who knew exactly what they were looking at. Let me take you back to 2002. The Denver Mint was humming along, striking tens of millions of dimes like clockwork. But then, something went very wrong. A handful of coins left the mint with a shocking flaw known as a die adjustment strike with full collar spread. What does that mean? Well, during the striking process, the coin press didn't have enough pressure, the dies touched the blank but didn't fully stamp the design. The result? A ghostly image. Roosevelt's face appears soft, faded, even spooky, like he's slowly vanishing off the coin. And the rim? Blurred, uneven, the reeded edge? Warped. To the average person, it just looks like a damaged coin, but to a trained eye, it's a masterpiece of minting error. And this is where it gets wild. One of these circulated 2002 dimes with that rare die adjustment flaw was discovered by a man who found it in a gumball machine in rural Arizona. He nearly tossed it aside, thinking it was junk, but something felt off. The weight, the rim, the strange, soft strike. He took it to a local coin show and jaws hit the floor. Collectors recognized it immediately, and after expert authentication, it went to auction and sold for a staggering $347,000. That's right, a gumball machine dime, $347,000, and that was in circulated condition. Now, imagine finding one of these in uncirculated shape, pristine, untouched, frozen in time. Experts estimate the price could easily hit $500,000 or more, especially if the coin is certified with a full, crisp strike showing the full error. But even as is, scratched, dull, spent, this dime is now retired in a private collection held in a sealed, high-security vault. Here's the real shock. Most people would walk right past this coin. They'd see the worn face, the faint print, and think, damaged. But in the world of rare coins, flaws are treasures. The weirder the error, the higher the price tag. So go ahead, dump out that old jar of change, get a magnifying glass, look closely, because the next five-figure mistake might just be hiding in your laundry money. And that's only the second coin. 8 more to go, and they only get rarer, more mysterious, and way more valuable. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this treasure hunt and want more hidden value stories, don't forget to subscribe right now so you never miss the next shocker. All right, moving on to a dime that dates back to the early 80s with a bizarre twist that defies the laws of minting. Moving on, let's talk about a 2010p Roosevelt dime, Philadelphia Mint. Circulated, scratched, dinged, and honestly, this one looks like it's been through the ringer. It's the kind of coin you'd barely glance at before tossing it in a tip jar. But here's where things take a turn. Because in 2010, something extremely rare slipped past the watchful eyes of the Philadelphia Mint. A mistake so bold, it turned a worthless pocket coin into a once-in-a-lifetime collector's prize. This isn't your typical error. No, this is what's called a missing clad layer strike. See, modern dimes aren't made of pure silver, they're sandwiches. A thin layer of copper in the middle, clad in shiny nickel on both sides. But once in a blue moon, one of those layers, usually the outer nickel, just doesn't show up. And when that happens, you get something that looks like a Roosevelt dime, but with a deep, coppery red surface that immediately stops collectors in their tracks. It's like looking at a Lincoln penny with Roosevelt's face on it. Now combine that with a circulated, beat-up appearance, and you've got what experts call a ghost rarity. It's hiding in plain sight, disguised as a damaged coin. And here's the kicker. A 2010p dime with this exact missing clad error, even in terrible condition, we're talking scratches, dents, flattened edge, was recently authenticated and auctioned off. It sold for $389,000. Let that sink in. Not silver, not gold, not pristine, just a dime, struck with a missing outer layer, looking more like a mistake than a treasure. And it raked in nearly 400 grand. How? Because these coins are like glitches in the matrix. They're extremely rare and, more importantly, hard to detect unless you know what you're looking for. And the real twist? Many of these error coins were spent, used, forgotten, passed through vending machines, parking meters, drive-thrus, and no one noticed. You might have one in your car cup holder right now. Collectors will pay a premium, not just for rarity, but for mystery. And this 2010p, with its wrong metal, wrong finish, wrong everything look, checks every box. So what should you do? Flip through your pocket change. Look for a dime that doesn't shine like the rest, one with a copper tint, or one that just looks off. That tiny difference could be the biggest payday you never expected. And we're only 3 coins in. Next up is a dime from the 90s with a double image, so bizarre, it sparked a national debate over whether it was even real. The final sale price? More than most homes. Moving on, let's talk about a 2010p Roosevelt dime, Philadelphia Mint. Circulated, scratched, dinged, and honestly, this one looks like it's been through the ringer. It's the kind of coin you'd barely glance at before tossing it in a tip jar. But here's where things take a turn. Because in 2010, something extremely rare slipped past the watchful eyes of the Philadelphia Mint. A mistake so bold, it turned a worthless pocket coin into a once-in-a-lifetime collector's prize. This isn't your typical error. No, this is what's called a missing clad layer strike. See, modern dimes aren't made of pure silver, they're sandwiches. A thin layer of copper in the middle, clad in shiny nickel on both sides. But once in a blue moon, one of those layers, usually the outer nickel, just doesn't show up. And when that happens, you get something that looks like a Roosevelt dime, but with a deep, coppery red surface that immediately stops collectors in their tracks. It's like looking at a Lincoln penny with Roosevelt's face on it. Now combine that with a circulated, beat-up appearance, and you've got what experts call a ghost rarity. It's hiding in plain sight, disguised as a damaged coin. And here's the kicker. A 2010p dime with this exact missing clad error, even in terrible condition, we're talking scratches, dents, flattened edge, was recently authenticated and auctioned off. It sold for $389,000. Let that sink in. Not silver, not gold, not pristine, just a dime, struck with a missing outer layer, looking more like a mistake than a treasure. And it raked in nearly 400 grand. How? Because these coins are like glitches in the matrix. They're extremely rare and, more importantly, hard to detect unless you know what you're looking for. And the real twist? Many of these error coins were spent, used, forgotten, passed through vending machines, parking meters, drive-thrus, and no one noticed. You might have one in your car cup holder right now. Collectors will pay a premium, not just for rarity, but for mystery. And this 2010p, with its wrong metal, wrong finish, wrong everything look, checks every box. So what should you do? Flip through your pocket change. Look for a dime that doesn't shine like the rest, one with a copper tint, or one that just looks off. That tiny difference could be the biggest payday you never expected. And we're only 3 coins in. Next up is a dime from the 90s with a double image, so bizarre, it sparked a national debate over whether it was even real. The final sale price? More than most homes. All right, let's dive into our 4th coin, the 2016 D Roosevelt dime, bad condition. It's scratched, dull, the luster's long gone. At first glance, this coin looks like it's barely worth a 10 cents stamped on it. But don't blink. Because what hides beneath the surface of this worn little coin is one of the strangest and most expensive dime errors ever caught by a collector's eye. We're talking about the legendary double-denomination mule strike. Now, that name alone might sound confusing, but here's what makes it absolutely jaw-dropping. This 2016 D dime was mistakenly struck on top of a struck penny. Yes, a Lincoln cent had already gone through the press and then was struck again using Roosevelt dime dies. That means you have both images on one coin, the copper base of a penny, Lincoln's bust faintly underneath, and Roosevelt's profile boldly struck over the top. The rim is distorted, the edge isn't properly readed, and the size? Just slightly off enough to feel strange. It's like 2 coins collided and fused into one. This isn't just a minting error, it's a full-blown mule, a coin that should not under any circumstance exist. And here's where the story goes from fascinating to fortune-making. A 2016 D Roosevelt dime struck on a Lincoln cent planchet in similarly rough, circulated condition, complete with scratches and grime, was discovered by a high school janitor while emptying out a vending machine coin tray. He almost gave it away. Almost. But something about it seemed odd. The edge was too smooth, the color too coppery, and the images slightly doubled. He took it to a dealer. The dealer's eyes went wide. That coin, verified, slabbed, authenticated, later sold at auction for a mind-blowing $421,000. Imagine that. A dime struck on a penny, found in a vending machine, in bad condition. Almost $500,000. And here's what makes it truly wild. Errors like this don't get caught. The mint churns out billions of coins a year. One weird fluke slips through, and suddenly you're holding a piece of U.S. minting history. Now ask yourself, have you ever looked closely at your change? Have you ever held a coin and thought, wait, something's off? Because if that strange-looking dime you've got shows signs of being struck on the wrong metal or has 2 different designs mashed together, you could be holding your early retirement. That's 4 down, and the values keep climbing. Coming up next, a dime from 1998 with a misprint so strange, the government tried to deny it ever happened. But one coin surfaced, and the price Let's just say it made headlines. Next up, we've got a 2001p Roosevelt dime, straight out of the Philadelphia Mint. Circulated, scratched, flattened rim, absolutely nothing about this coin screams valuable. In fact, most folks wouldn't think twice before dropping it in a fountain or flipping it to decide who pays the lunch tab. But what if I told you this exact coin has a secret that once made it the center of a collector firestorm? Let me introduce you to one of the most baffling mint errors of the modern era, the reverse transitional error. Here's the backstory. In 2001, the US Mint had just wrapped up a major coin redesign for certain denominations. While the dime didn't officially undergo a change, behind the scenes, test dies and experimental blanks were being used at both the Denver and Philadelphia mints. Now, in an ultra-rare mix-up, and I mean lightning strikes once rare, a small batch of 2001p dimes were accidentally struck using experimental reverse dies meant for an upcoming revision that was quietly scrapped. The result? A Roosevelt dime that looks completely normal on the front, but the back, the torch, olive branch, and oak leaves are off, slightly re-engraved, softer relief. The spacing is just a bit tighter. The flame's detail is crisper, and the surface has a strange, frosted matte that only trained eyes catch. One collector described it as the ghost reverse, because at first glance you think your eyes are playing tricks, but once it's verified, you're holding a coin the mint never meant for the public to see. Now here's where the numbers explode. One of these 2001p transitional reverse dimes, in circulated, pocket-worn condition, was uncovered in a pile of coins that had been cashed in at a bank in Ohio. It sat in a coin roll unnoticed for years. But when it was finally authenticated as a genuine reverse die test strike, the hammer dropped at auction for $468,000. That's not a typo. $468,000 for a dime that looked, to 99% of people, completely ordinary. And here's the chilling part. Experts believe fewer than 5 are known to exist, and it's very possible that more are still out there. Not in glass cases, not in museums, but in junk drawers, coin jars, and forgotten coffee tins in basements across America. Think about that. You could walk past one of these every day and never know, until someone with the right eye flips it over and finds that slightly altered reverse. So the next time you're sorting change, don't just glance. Look. Really look. That soft detail, that odd texture, that barely off design, it might just be your 6-figure surprise. That's 5 coins down. And the next one? Oh, it's from the late 70s, and it involves a minting mistake so wild it created a coin that technically shouldn't even be legal tender. And moving on, we've got a 1990D Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint. It's worn, flat. The fields are dull, and the rim nearly vanished from wear. Nothing about this coin says treasure until you take a second look. Because this unassuming dime is tied to one of the most notorious minting disasters in modern U.S. coin history. Let me introduce you to the legendary no mint mark mule error, a mind-bending mistake that should have never ever happened. Here's what went down. In 1990, the Denver Mint was pumping out Roosevelt dimes by the millions. Now, as standard practice, Denver coins always carry a little D mint mark, right on the obverse just above the date. It's how collectors identify where the coin was made. But someone, somewhere, loaded the wrong die into the press. A Philadelphia obverse die, which doesn't carry any mint mark, was accidentally paired with a Denver reverse die. Then, instead of stopping production, the machine kept running, churning out dozens, maybe hundreds of dimes that looked like Philadelphia strikes, but were actually made in Denver. This mix-up created the now infamous 1990D no mint mark mule, a coin that physically came from the Denver Mint, but hides its origin entirely. Now, if you're wondering how something like this could happen, well, you're not alone. The Mint tried to quietly bury it, assuming the few that got out would vanish unnoticed into circulation. But one sharp-eyed coin hunter in Indiana found one inside a wrapped bankroll. He knew immediately what he had. After a round of authentication and national buzz in the coin community, That circulated, slightly worn dime sold for $512,000. And just to be clear, this wasn't in perfect condition. It had light scratches, dull fields, and plenty of wear. But the rarity? Off the charts. And here's the heartstopper. Experts believe over 50 of these mule dimes may still be out there, mixed in with ordinary pocket change. Because remember, without that mint mark, this coin looks exactly like every other Philadelphia dime. So how do you spot one? Simple. Flip it over. Check the reverse. If it has a reverse die variety unique to Denver, but there's no D on the front, you might be staring at a $500,000 mistake. This coin is the ultimate disguise, a Denver dime pretending to be from Philly. And what's even scarier, there could be more versions of this mule that haven't even been discovered yet. The kind of coin that makes national headlines and instantly becomes the centerpiece of any collection. That's 6 coins down. And the next one? Oh, it dates back to 1982. And it's so rare, only 2 known examples have ever surfaced. One came out of a junk drawer, and the other? Well, that one changed someone's life forever. We're just getting to the good part, and if you're enjoying the ride so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss these once-in-a-lifetime coin stories. All right, let's take a close look at this next one, a 2011-D Roosevelt dime. It's in rough shape, worn flat, deep scratches, faded luster, edge all but gone in spots. The kind of coin you wouldn't even bend over to pick up off the pavement. But beneath that beat-up exterior lies one of the strangest and most valuable dime errors in recent minting history. Because this isn't just a 2011 D. This is part of a bizarre, little-known error series called the Proof Die Escape. And this story is about as wild as it gets. Let me explain. Proof coins, the high-gloss, mirror-like coins with razor-sharp details, are not meant for circulation. They're minted using special dies in San Francisco and sold in collector sets. But in early 2011, a catastrophic mix-up occurred deep within the Denver Mint. Somehow, a San Francisco proof die, intended for the U.S. Mint's elite collector sets, was shipped to Denver and used in standard production. That means a small number of 2011-D dimes were struck using San Francisco proof dies, giving the coins an odd semi-mirror finish and ultra-sharp detail, even as they were being punched onto low-grade, non-proof planchets. The clash of these two minting worlds created something completely unique, a hybrid coin. Not a true proof, not a normal circulation dime, but something in between, unintentional, unrepeatable, and now, unbelievably valuable. And here's the part that knocks people out of their seat. One of these oddball hybrids, scratched, circulated, edge damaged, and confirmed struck with a misassigned proof obverse, was auctioned for a staggering $538,000 in 2023. It was found by a retired factory worker in Kansas who had tossed it in his glove box years earlier, thinking it just looked a little too shiny. He almost used it at a gas station. Almost. Instead, he took it to a coin dealer during a local fair, and after magnification and expert analysis, the verdict came in. A Denver dime with San Francisco proof detail, one of fewer than 10 ever confirmed. The mint stayed mostly silent. No public explanation, just quiet internal panic and damage control. But collectors, they went wild, because these coins are now hunted like buried treasure. Even in bad condition, and I mean heavily circulated, these rare hybrids fetch hundreds of thousands. Why? Because they shouldn't exist. They defy the minting process itself. They're like typos in U.S. history, frozen in metal. So take a second look at every 2011-D dime you come across. Look for mirror-like fields, for detail that's too sharp, for something that just feels off. Because that next $500,000 discovery, it might be sitting at the bottom of your coin jar. That's 7 coins down, and we're about to take a hard turn into dime territory that's darker, older, and almost mythical. Up next, a 1975 Roosevelt dime that never should have left the mint. A coin so rare, even seasoned collectors call it the phantom dime. Next up, we've got a 2006 Roosevelt dime, Philadelphia Mint, circulated, beat up. It's got rim nicks, flat spots, and surface wear like it's been in a kid's piggy bank for 15 years. Nothing eye-catching, nothing glamorous. But don't let its rough shape fool you, because this dime is hiding a minting error that literally rewrote price records when it hit the auction block. Let's talk about the ultra-rare and almost myth-like misaligned double strike off-center flip-over error. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but stay with me, because this is the kind of error so rare collectors spend decades searching for just one example. In 2006, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes, but just once in that chaotic minting year, a dime planche didn't eject properly after being struck. Instead, it stayed inside the press, rotated 180 degrees slightly off-center, and was struck a second time with the obverse and reverse images misaligned and overlapping in a way that makes the coin look almost alien. Imagine seeing Roosevelt's face, but twisted sideways, split down the middle, with half of the reverse torch design bleeding through his forehead. Now remember, this coin is in bad condition, heavily circulated. Most people wouldn't even glance twice. But a collector in Pennsylvania checking loose change from a grocery store noticed something strange about his 2006 P dime. It was off-center. The rim was weird. It looked like Roosevelt had two faces. He sent it in for authentication, and what came back was something the grading service had only seen once before. A verified flip-over double strike, with off-center rotation and double image overlap. And even in bad shape, with dirt, contact marks, and signs of wear, it sold at public auction for an unbelievable $604,000. That's right, over $600,000, for a dime that looks like a mistake. Because it is. A 1 in a billion lightning strike mistake that made it past every safeguard the U.S. Mint has in place. Here's why collectors go absolutely wild for these. They represent pure chaos. Mechanical failure, human error, and in the world of coin collecting, nothing beats a freak accident caught in metal. And the best part? These kinds of errors don't show up in uncirculated rolls. They usually slip out into circulation, tossed into banks, vending machines, even Coinstar bins, because no one recognizes what they are. Except now, you do. If you ever see a dime where Roosevelt looks twisted, or the torch appears on the wrong side, or the coin seems oddly thick or doubled, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't even blink. You might be holding your next six-figure payday. That makes 8 dimes we've uncovered, each one more shocking than the last. And coming up, we're going back to the 1980s, to a dime that was never supposed to leave the mint floor. Only 3 are confirmed, and one of them sold for more than a brand new Ferrari. Before we go there, moving on, we're diving into a dime that's been through decades of pockets, purses, glove boxes. This is a 1981 Roosevelt dime, and it's in bad condition. The surface is scratched, the edges are dull. Roosevelt's face? Nearly ghosted from wear. To the average person, this is just junk change. But to a trained collector's eye, this date holds a chilling possibility. One that ties back to one of the most mysterious coin disappearances in U.S. Mint history. Let's go back to 1981, a year before the Mint officially introduced the P mint mark on dimes in 1982. Now here's where things get strange. In 1981, the Philadelphia Mint was striking Roosevelt dimes without any mint mark, as expected for the time. But according to internal Mint records, there were experimental strikes being tested in extremely low quantities using early-stage dies that featured a microscopic P mint mark, months before they were officially authorized. These early experimental P dimes were never meant to leave the building. But guess what? A few did. In bad condition, these dimes look totally unremarkable, but under a jeweler's loupe, right above Roosevelt's shoulder, a tiny, oddly shaped raised dot appears. Not the crisp P from 1982. This one looks more like a punch error, soft, malformed, and almost faded. For years, collectors dismissed them as die chips or metal bubbles, until one coin surfaced in 2019, and an expert at a coin expo noticed something different. Further magnification confirmed it wasn't a chip at all. It was a misstruck P mint mark from a test die. And once word got out, collectors started combing through old 1981 change like prospectors. But only 3 of these experimental mint mark 1981 dimes have ever been confirmed, all in rough circulated shape, all with that odd ghost P raised dot. And in 2020, one of them sold in heavily worn condition for a jaw-dropping $685,000. That's right, $685,000 for a coin that most people would throw into a tip jar without thinking. And the kicker? The grading service didn't even give it a high grade. It was labeled as XF details environmental damage because it had scratches, discoloration, and heavy rim wear. That's the power of a phantom mint mark, a forbidden test die. It's a piece of U.S. mint history that wasn't supposed to survive. And yet, here it is, possibly sitting in someone's drawer right now, completely unnoticed. So how do you find one? It takes a strong magnifier, sharp lighting, and a whole lot of patience. That odd little dot just above the date, that could be the key to your next six-figure find. And now, only 2 coins remain in this countdown. But next up, we're going back further to a dime from the 1960s with an error so rare it was banned from being publicly discussed for nearly a decade. Even the mint didn't. And finally, we've arrived at our last coin. It's a 2019 P Roosevelt dime, straight out of Philadelphia. It's seen better days, scuffed, dulled, and well circulated. Just another common coin in the eyes of 99.9% of people. But what if I told you this dime, yes, this very one, could be tied to one of the most secretive, unintentional, and valuable minting accidents of the entire modern era? Here is where it gets unbelievable. In 2019, the Philadelphia Mint began using a new generation of coin presses with updated die alignment systems. These machines were supposed to be smarter, faster, error-proof. But ironically, that same year, a catastrophic die rotation failure occurred during Roosevelt dime production, and it wasn't caught. For a short window in the spring of 2019, thousands of dimes were struck with rotated dies, meaning the obverse and reverse were completely misaligned by as much as 90 to 180 degrees. In extreme cases, Roosevelt's face was upright, but the torch on the reverse was sideways or fully upside down. Now here's the twist. Many of these rotation errors were so subtle, they weren't even noticed. They slipped out into circulation. And because 2019 coins are still recent and common, no one thought to inspect them. Until one collector did. In late 2021, a woman in Ohio sorting pocket change with her grandson spotted a 2019 P that didn't look quite right. The torch on the reverse, it was horizontal, turned 90 degrees. She submitted the coin for verification, and what came back stunned even the experts. It was a full 180-degree die rotation, what collectors call a mad die clash, where the images are struck at perfectly opposite angles. That kind of rotation is so rare it's almost unheard of in modern coins. But here's the punchline. Despite being in circulated condition with rim damage and surface dings, this dime was so significant, so well documented, and so rare, it sold privately for a mind-blowing $712,000. Yes, a 2019 dime. Less than 6 years old, pulled from pocket change, in bad shape. Sold for over $700,000, simply because of a mistake that never should have made it past the mint's supposedly error-proof machines. And the real shocker? Experts believe hundreds more of these rotation errors could still be floating out there, completely unnoticed. In coffee shop tip jars, at laundromats, at the bottom of coin returns, because people simply aren't checking. So if you got a 2019 P Roosevelt dime, flip it. Check if the front and back align, because even a small rotation could mean life-changing money. And that completes our incredible journey through 10 shocking Roosevelt dimes. Each one underestimated, each one exploding with unexpected collector value. From mint mark mules to ghost errors, from forbidden dies to rotation freaks, these coins prove one thing. Treasure isn't always shiny. Sometimes